Hello and welcome back to another video. Just an advance warning, I'm very tired at the moment, so I might be a bit slower than usual, which is probably a good thing because I think that I talk quite fast sometimes. But anyway, today I just wanted to make a quick video talking about sex favourability versus sex positivity. Now these are two completely separate things. Sometimes they are conflated and the terms overlap somewhat, but I think it's useful to have different separate terms for each of them so you can easily distinguish between the two things. But yes, without further ado, let's get into it. Sex favourability versus sex positivity. So I guess let's start with sex positivity, because that's something that is a more widely known issue in society at large. Sex positivity, and by extension sex negativity, are social attitudes and movements talking about the expression of sex and the freedom to do what you want sexually and to be autonomous in your own body. So people who are sex positive might be fully supportive of, for example, masturbation as being a perfectly healthy and normal thing to do, and having consensual sex with whomever you want to do in whatever way that you perfectly want to do it, as long as it's not hurting anyone, and things like reproductive rights. And it also kind of overlaps a little bit with body positivity. So it's this big conglomeration of things under the large umbrella that is sex. Talking about kind of the freedom to do what you want sexually and that being okay in society. And to be honest, I'm not a massive expert in this, so take what I say with a grain of salt. I try to avoid sex wherever possible, but sex is often this taboo topic, and people can be made to feel shameful for wanting sex or doing something sexually that other people might find a bit weird. So sex positivity is trying to normalize those things and make everyone feel more comfortable in what they want to do or not do sexually. The other end of that scale is sex negativity, which is where people will feel shameful towards people who are having sex, and they think there's something wrong with it or icky, and maybe they would want to put restrictions on people having sex in a certain way. And this can extend to things like sexuality too, like people who don't agree with same-sex couples having sex. I would probably consider those in like the sex negative category, because they're not like allowing people to be free to have consensual sex, mutually consensual sex, however they want to. Now, hopefully that makes sense about sex positivity and sex negativity. This isn't something inherent, this is something that is learnt, and it's a choice that you make to kind of decide how you feel about sex. And in my opinion, sex positivity is the right side. Like, people should be free to do whatever they want, as long as it's mutually consensual with the people involved. However, just because you're sex positive does not mean you have to be comfortable with sex in every single way possible. And it doesn't mean that you or yourself are really enthusiastic about sex. You're just fine with other people having it. So that's why the other spectrum, I suppose, that I wanted to talk about today comes into play. So that is sex repulsion to sex favourability. So this, as far as I know, only really comes up in ace spaces. The reason we have this sex repulsion to sex favourability scale is because not necessarily every person who identifies as ace will feel the same way about sex themselves. So, for example, someone who is sex repulsed will want nothing to do with sex. They may not even like watching sex on TV. That makes them feel really uncomfortable, and they definitely don't want to have sex themselves. And then if you go up the scale, you have sex indifferent, which is where you're not particularly enthusiastic about sex, you're not repulsed by it, it's just there. It's kind of a meh feeling where you don't care strongly one way or the other whether sex is involved. And I guess some people in this category is where you could start getting aces who are okay having sex in relationships. They may be fine doing it, but not really have any particularly positive or negative feelings about it. And then on the higher end of the spectrum, you have sex favourable. And these are people who are enthusiastic about sex and enjoy sex. They might want to have sex in a relationship, even though they don't feel any sexual attraction, which is perfectly fine. There are many reasons why you might want sex. And they might, for example, like enjoy watching porn or watching it on TV, get really interested in sex, like talking about sex. But it's totally fine to also be asexual while being sex favourable. And that's why we have this scale. So you can, if you want to, you're able to describe how you personally feel about sex and how you interact with it and its place in your life. So yeah, that's spectrum number 2. I hope that made sense. And now I just finally wanted to finish off with talking about the interaction between these two spectra, in that there is no interaction. These two spectra are completely mutually exclusive. You can be the most sex-repulsed asexual in the world, but you can also be sex-positive. Just because you don't want to be involved with it yourself and that you are repulsed by it doesn't mean that you'll necessarily judge people or the people around you for having sex, or don't accept and support them having the sex they want to have and being sexually free and being comfortable in their own body and what they do with it. So it's perfectly okay to be on completely opposite ends of each of these spectra. And I think the issue with language that I was talking about earlier about conflating them is that if someone, for example, were to say, "Oh, I'm really sex negative," but they meant I'm sex repulsed, and then someone else might take that in you saying that you don't like people having sex and you judge people who have sex a certain way, which is obviously probably not what you mean. So I think by having the distinction between these two terms, it can really help to clear up communication about it and make it abundantly clear as much as possible that you're talking about your own feelings and how you want to experience and interact with sex, as opposed to how you feel about what others do. So yeah, I hope that all made sense. I'm a bit tired, not gonna lie. I barely made it through this video. But it's fine, it was my own fault. I went to bed a bit later. I thought this was an important video to do because it's not something I've done before, and I think in the last video I did slip up with my own use of language, and it was pointed out in the comments, which is totally fine. And I really hope if I do slip up, you do tell me, because if I say something wrong and someone has heard that for the first time and then believes me, then they're misinformed, and that's my fault. So I'd rather know as soon as possible so then I can remedy it by putting a video which talks about that topic specifically, so I can be more careful with my language, because I am going to make mistakes. I'm only human after all. But I try my best not to, and I rely on you guys to point out when I don't, so thanks for that. But yes, I'm going to have to close this video out. It might have been a bit of a shorter one, but I hope you enjoyed it nonetheless. If you have any thoughts to say on this matter, then feel free to leave them in the comments down below. Otherwise, if you enjoyed this video, then please leave a like. I post videos every Saturday, so if you want to see more, then feel free to subscribe. That is all I had to say today. Have a wonderful day, and I shall see you next time. And then on the higher end of the spectrum, sex positivity, and by extension, sex negativity. So the reason we have this sex